Just before this episode, here's how you can get more from Never a Truer Word. If you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, you can subscribe to this channel to get early access to the weekly analysis episodes, video episodes so you can see the statements as I analyze them, and exclusive content too. And if you're here on YouTube, then become a member of the channel to get early access to everything and exclusive content not available anywhere else. Hello and welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and look to give you the advantage that comes from understanding the world a little bit better by just looking at the words that people are using all around you. This episode, we're looking at Oscar Pistorius, former Paralympian who shot and killed his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp. He said he was in fear. He said it was mistaken identity. Others said it was deliberate, and he was sent to jail for killing Reeva. I asked what you thought of the Oscar Peterson case, what the audience thought. This is my favourite comment, which was, why can't you leave the guy alone? He did his time and paid the price. Every time the Americans comes up with stories about him, and while they do not understand the circumstances and fear you live with in South Africa, it is pure sensation seeking. I'm going to ignore the fact that you said the fear that you have in South Africa. I've been to South Africa. I've spoke to people in South Africa. I understand very well the fear that is in the society and in communities there. I'm also not American, and my final comment is, you must have been fun in history class if we're not allowed to discuss the past, because it's the past. Other messages, someone says guilty, and I believe he had massive anger issues. So let's look for anger issues in the words that we're looking at. Kaza, I believe he was jealous, maybe insecure, had some anger issues, completely lost the plot for a second. His excuses were terrible. Dark Side of the Moon, hello, says, I believe he is guilty. Suzanne says, I too believe he was very insecure due to his disability, probably compared himself to other men his girlfriend might have spoken to, and yes, anger issues. I believe he is guilty 100%. Lilbet read the statement which we are going to look at. I'm afraid what he's saying doesn't make sense. If I'm in the dark and scared, my natural reaction is to put the light on as quick as possible. I understand that's your reaction. Would it have been Oscar's reaction when he talks about not putting the light on? Is that believable? When he went into the bathroom in the pitch black, as he says, he couldn't see anyone. He was scared to walk around in the pitch dark because he knew Reeva was in the toilet. I'm afraid guilty as hell. I've always believed he knew Reeva was in the toilet. If he was scared it was an intruder, he would have raised the alarm. Niti says, this will be interesting. I've always wondered about this case. And this one got me thinking. It says, delighted you are covering this. I thought he was definitely guilty after watching the trial. And when I read that comment, I went, I think he's guilty too. So I wanted to try and take that bias away as I analyze the statement, but I was trying to think about why I thought he was guilty, because I didn't watch the trial. I haven't read very much about it, but in my head he was guilty. I'm not entirely sure where that thought came from. Maybe I watched a documentary or an interview or something, but I'm going to try and clear that out of my head as we look at this statement. This statement was delivered to a court just a few days after Reeva was shot by Oscar Pistorius. What I'm interested in this is that because it was so recent to the events, then it's potentially his first telling of his story, of his version of events. If there's deception going on, if there's lying going on, he hasn't had a lot of time to refine the story, so there might be a lot of leakage coming out. And if, as he says, he was in fear and so on, then the truth, the feelings of the truth should come through there. It won't feel like a rehearsed story that he's told many times over the years. It would feel very raw, and we'd see a lot of it in there. I'm going to read through the full statement before we analyze it. As I'm doing this, try and picture in your mind what is happening. I often find that when someone is talking and telling you about events, if their words enable you to paint a very clear picture in your head of what it is they're describing, this tends to be truthful because they have the authentic language to talk about what has happened. If, on the other hand, you just can't really draw that proper, concise, clear mental picture, is it because they're introducing complexity? Is it because they're using language to describe things that didn't happen? So just try, as I go through the full statement, to picture what it is that Oscar Pistorius was talking about. Let's go. On the 13th of February 2013, Reeva would have gone out with her friends and I with my friends. Reeva then called me and asked that we rather spend the evening at home. I agreed, and we were content to have a quiet dinner together at home. By about 2200 hours on 13th February 2013, we were in our bedroom. She was doing her yoga exercises and I was in bed watching television. My prosthetic legs were off. We were deeply in love and I could not be happier. I know she felt the same way. She had given me a present for Valentine's Day but asked me only to open it the next day. After Reeva finished her yoga exercises, she got into bed and we both fell asleep. I am acutely aware of violent crime being committed by intruders entering homes with a view to commit crime, including violent crime. I have received death threats before. I have also been a victim of violence and of burglaries before. For that reason, I keep my firearm, a 9mm Parabellum, under my bed when I went to bed at night. During the early hours of 14th February 2013, I woke up, went in onto the balcony to bring the fan in and closed the sliding doors, the blinds and the curtains. I heard a noise in the bathroom and realised that someone was in the bathroom. I felt a sense of terror rushing over me. There are no burglar bars across the bathroom window, and I knew that contractors who worked at my house had left the ladders outside. Although I did not have my prosthetic legs on, I have mobility on my stumps. I believed that someone had entered my house. I was too scared to switch a light on. I grabbed my 9mm pistol from underneath my bed. On my way to the bathroom, I screamed words to the effect for him/them to get out of my house and for Reeva to phone the police. It was pitch dark in the bedroom and I thought Reeva was in bed. I noticed that the bathroom window was open. I realised that the intruder/intruders was/were in the toilet because the toilet door was closed and I did not see anyone in the bathroom. I heard movement inside the toilet. The toilet is inside the bathroom and has a separate door. It filled me with horror and fear of an intruder or intruders being inside the toilet. I thought he or they must have entered through the unprotected window. As I did not have my prosthetic legs on and felt extremely vulnerable, I knew I had to protect Reeva and myself. I believed that when the intruder/intruders came out of the toilet, we would be in grave danger. I felt trapped as my bedroom door was locked and I have limited mobility on my stumps. I fired shots at the toilet door and shouted to Reeva to phone the police. She did not respond and I moved backwards out of the bathroom, keeping my eyes on the bathroom entrance. Everything was pitch dark in the bedroom and I was still too scared to switch on a light. Reeva was not responding. When I reached the bed, I realised that Reeva was not in bed. That is when it dawned on me that it could have been Reeva who was in the toilet. I returned to the bathroom calling her name. I tried to open the toilet door, but it was locked. I rushed back into the bedroom and opened the sliding door, exiting onto the balcony and screamed for help. I put on my prosthetic legs, ran back to the bathroom and tried to kick the toilet door open. I think I must have turned on the lights. I went back into the bedroom and grabbed my cricket bat to bash open the toilet door. A panel or panels broke off and I found the key on the floor and unlocked and opened the door. Reeva was slumped over, but alive. I battled to get her out of the toilet and pulled her into the bathroom. I phoned Johan Stander, who was involved in the administration of the estate, and asked him to phone the ambulance. I phoned Netcare and asked for help. I went downstairs to open the front door. I returned to the bathroom and picked Reeva up as I had been told not to wait for the paramedics but to take her to hospital. I carried her downstairs in order to take her to the hospital. On my way down, Stander arrived. A doctor who lives in the complex also arrived. Downstairs, I tried to render the assistance to Reeva that I could, but she died in my arms. I am absolutely mortified by the events and the devastating loss of my beloved Reeva. With the benefit of hindsight, I believe that Reeva went to the toilet when I went out on the balcony to bring the fan in. I cannot bear to think of the suffering I have caused her and her family, knowing how much she was loved. I also know that the events of that tragic night were as I have described them, and that in due course I have no doubt the police and expert investigators will bear this out. How's your mental picture doing? Have you got one? Was it clear? I should say, by the way, I don't know who wrote this. It's written from Oscar, so we should take it that these are his words. I don't know who helped form it. You can see some legal language in there and so on as well. But this is ripe for analysis. So let's go right back to the start. And the start was, on the 13th of February 2013, Reeva would have gone out with her friends and I with my friends. Reeva then called me and asked that we rather spend the evening at home. So this is where he has chosen to start telling the story. That's interesting, because we might expect that the story would start with him waking up and then shooting the bathroom, but instead the story starts on the 13th of February, and that's very interesting as to why he's chosen to start the story there, that day, that evening before the shooting, and not in the early hours of the 14th of February when the shooting happened. In fact, if you look at the statement, then it's quite interesting how it's constructed. The first third, maybe quarter, is all about setting this scene of what happened on the evening. Now, why is that? Did something happen that evening? Sometimes when we ask someone to start telling the story of what happened, because they want to cover up some events, they tell the story of the covered up events rather than just starting where the action starts, if you like. It's after that quarter that he gets into these early hours of the 14th of February, and it's after halfway before we get to I fired shots. That can be signs of storytelling, of setting up a narrative. It could also be signs of nervousness, of getting to the story. So we like to sit and talk about things that are really comfortable to talk about and go with them, because we know that when we have to tell the uncomfortable part of the story, whether it's a horrible thing to tell or whether there's some deception and lying, which we don't generally like doing, we will talk along about other things, setting up the story, doing all the comfortable stuff, which is why maybe until halfway through the telling of the story before we get to the actual part of the story. So back to this statement, I really do think that something happened that evening there. I'm not saying that right now this is why Reeva got shot, but in his head it's important for him to tell us what happened the evening before. And he says, Reeva would have gone out with her friends and I with my friends. Reeva then called me and asked that we rather spend the evening at home. So Reeva would have gone out with her friends. Now, that's an interesting way to phrase it. It's not said that Reeva should have gone out with her friends, or the plan was that Reeva went out with her friends and I went out with my friends. Is Reeva would have gone out with my friends. And when we say something would happen, we can expect an if after it. Reeva would have gone out with her friends if something. Is the if that he didn't want Reeva to go out with his friends? Was he jealous about Reeva going out with his friends? Did he want the attention rather than Reeva going out with her friends? Is that why he's phrased it as Reeva would have gone out with her friends, but I persuaded her not to, or I demanded her not to? We can't make up words that are not there, but he has used would have gone out with her friends, and I want to know why. And we have another one. Reeva then called me and asked that we rather spend the evening at home. Asked that we rather spend the evening at home, not said she would prefer to spend the evening at home or she'd love it if we spent the evening together at home. Just asked that we rather spend the evening at home. Two interesting word choices. Reeva would have gone out with her friends, but no if, and asked that we rather spend the evening at home. Whatever happened, there's been some choice made there which he thinks is important to tell us that Reeva, the plan was that they were going to spend the evening apart, and for some reason they spend the evening together. And then this description of the evening together, strangely worded again. I agreed to spend the evening together, and we were content to have a quiet dinner together at home. Now, first of all, content is just kind of so middling, isn't it? It doesn't sound like, instead of going out and having some fun or socializing with their friends, they were content to have a quiet dinner together at home. Yeah, I mean, it's not like I agreed, and yeah, we had a quiet dinner together at home and we're content with what we decided to do. No, we were content to have a quiet dinner together at home. So was it that Reeva was not content having this quiet dinner at home? Would she have rather have gone out with friends but felt coerced into spending this night with Oscar? That seems to be suggested to me as a possibility by the words. We were content to have a quiet dinner together at home. So there's some jointness there. There is some jointness. We had a quiet dinner together at home. Although, why does he feel the need to say this was together? Again, I think the separation that was planned that evening has caused him some anxiety. And if you just look at the description of the night, although they had this quiet dinner together at home, then there is nothing else that they did together. She was doing her yoga exercises. I was in bed watching television. My legs were off. There just doesn't seem to have been this trade-off between going out with your friends and doing something more exciting at home or doing something more coupley at home. There was a quiet dinner together, and then they went their separate ways. They went to the bedroom. She was doing her yoga exercises. He was watching television. And then he feels the need to tell us right after this, "We were deeply in love and I could not be happier. I know she felt the same way." Why does he feel the need to tell us that? We were deeply in love and I could not be happier. I know she felt the same way. Is this again because that there was unhappiness going on that night? You'll see that "we were deeply in love" is put together, but her happiness is only expressed through him. Did notice something here though, is that Oscar always puts Reeva first. So he stated it, Reeva would have gone out with her friends and I with my friends. So it wasn't I was going out with my friend, Reeva with hers. Reeva then called me and asked that we rather spend the evening at home. I agreed. It wasn't I agreed to Reeva's request that we spend the evening at home. She was doing her yoga exercises. I was in bed watching television. He doesn't lead with the slightly more selfish version, which would be I was in bed watching television. She was doing her yoga exercises. And he uses the word "we" and "our" quite a lot in this intro, which suggests there is unity between them. We spend the evening at home. We were content to have a quiet dinner together. We were in our bedroom and we were deeply in love. So he uses the word "we." He definitely saw them as a couple. And then that changes. So he's used "we" all the way through. And then when they were in bed and he talks about how deeply in love they are, it's "we were deeply in love." And then it just becomes separate. I could not be happier. I know she felt the same way. So it isn't "we couldn't be happier." It's split. It's divided. And then she had given me a present for Valentine's Day, but asked me only to open it the next day. So there is a split there. We carry on with the statement. After Reeva finished her yoga exercises, she got into bed and we both fell asleep. I am acutely aware of violent crime being committed by intruders entering homes with a view to commit violent crime, including violent crime. Sorry, for you to commit crime, including violent crime. So if you just take that part there, I had trouble saying it even because it's just written very weirdly. This is where I think he is trying to give us the impression that he lived in fear in this house, and that is why he had a gun, and that is why he thought there was an intruder in the house and shot through the bathroom door. But it's worded really strangely. I am acutely aware of violent crime being committed by intruders entering homes with a view to commit crime, including violent crime. So there's this repetition of crime, violent crime, commit crime, including violent crime. Listen, if you break it down to what he actually says there, number one, he doesn't say he's scared. He doesn't once say he's scared or frightened. He's just stating some facts here or beliefs. And what he says, if you take some of it out, is, I am acutely aware of violent crime being committed with a view to commit crime, including violent crime. So what he's really just saying there is crime, violent crime exists, which is just a fact. But for all he says, I have received death threats before. I have also been a victim of violence and burglaries before. He doesn't say these things scare him. Is he using that as an excuse? There is a lot of fear of crime. There is a lot of crime to be fearful of in South Africa. So is that what he's doing? Is he going to a well-known fact and he's just stating that fact? But he says, for that reason, I kept my firearm underneath my bed when I went to bed at night. Now, he doesn't actually say, because I was scared of that, or because I wanted to protect myself, or because I didn't want it to happen again, I kept my firearm. The reason that he kept his firearm is that that crime exists, is what he's saying. He doesn't actually say he has fear in there. He says that after Reeva finished her yoga exercises, she got into bed and we both fell asleep. That's an interesting choice of words for me. We both fell asleep. Now, fell asleep is a term that you tend to use when you're observing someone. We both fell asleep in front of the TV. So you're observing yourself and someone else. The kids fell asleep about 9 o'clock because I observed that was around about the time that they fell asleep. It's not we both went to sleep. It's we both fell asleep. It's proof of nothing. I just found that a really interesting choice of words. He continues, during the early morning hours of the 14th February 2013, and I just wanted to flag up sometimes the formal language here, which I think has come from the fact this is an official document that was read in court. Potentially, he had the help of a lawyer writing this, and that is why I think that formal language is there. I don't think, although it could be, that it's formally written with this desire to be impressive. But we're getting to the meat of the story now. And he says, I woke up, singular, I woke up. But then he says, went to the balcony to bring the fan in and closed the sliding doors. Now, he doesn't say I went to the balcony or I closed the sliding doors. So did those things happen? Why has he not joined himself to those things happening? Also, when we spoke about the mental picture here, he says, I went on the balcony. He doesn't say I, he just says, went onto the balcony to bring in the fan and close the sliding doors, the blinds and the curtains. Now, were they open? Was the balcony, the sliding doors, were they open? And the blinds and the curtains, were they open? Because he doesn't mention opening them to go out to the balcony. He just says that he went to the balcony to bring in the fan, closed the sliding doors, the blinds and the curtains. I don't know whether they were open or whether, and that's why he closed them, or whether he's just omitted in the story that he opened the blinds, the curtains and the sliding doors to go out onto the balcony to bring in the fan. He doesn't even say why the fan was outside. He then says, I heard a noise in the bathroom and realised that someone was in the bathroom. Now, that is interesting. He says, I heard a noise in the bathroom and realised that someone was in the bathroom. He doesn't say what kind of noise he heard. There could be noises that, you would think something's going on in the bathroom. It could be a dripping tap, or, it could be something a bit weird. It could be that the window was open and the window was blowing. He doesn't say, I heard someone in the bathroom. He says, I heard a noise in the bathroom and realised that someone was in the bathroom. He's made a very quick jump there because of this noise to someone being in the bathroom. But what you'll notice here is he doesn't explain why he didn't think the someone in the bathroom was Reeva. The most obvious thing, if there are two people in the house and you hear that someone is in the bathroom and you have been on the balcony, is it would be the other person in the house. And he doesn't explain why he did not think that person was Reeva. It would be a natural conclusion. I've heard a noise in the bathroom and someone was in the bathroom. It's the person who's in the house. He doesn't explain why he didn't think it was Reeva. If you're enjoying this, the like button will be your friend. You are the marketing department of Never a Truer Word. There is no marketing budget, so I'm relying on you pressing the like button in 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Also, you can share this with anyone who's interested in this story or understanding a bit more about what's going on. As you can see at the beginning of this episode, everyone's comments are more than welcome. You can leave them here on this platform if you can, or you can get in touch on social media. All the links to social media are in the show notes. You can subscribe or follow to get more episodes like this. And if you become a member on YouTube or a subscriber on Spotify, you get episodes like this before anyone else. You get first look at them, and you also get member exclusive episodes as well. So there's lots of options to get yourself even more Never a Truer Word. Let's move on with Oscar. The next part of his statement starts, I felt a sense of terror rushing over me. There's a bit of distance here in this phrase. I felt a sense of terror rushing over me. This is almost like it's written in a book. In fact, when I say almost like it's written in a book, this is like it was written in a book. Oscar felt a sense of terror rushing over him. He doesn't say, I was terrified. He's narrating the story here, isn't he? I felt a sense of terror rushing over me. Not, I was terrified. There's a distance and there's a feeling of narration going on. He says, there are no burglar bars across the bathroom window, and I knew that contractors who worked at my house had left ladders outside. I believed that someone had entered the house. Once more, there's lots of thought going on here. He's thought about the burglar bars on the bathroom window. He's remembered the contractors were working at the house and they left the ladders outside. And he says, I believed that someone had entered my house. He's put lots of thought in it. Why did he discount Reeva? Why, in all of this thinking that he said he's doing, Did he discount Reeva? He hasn't told us why he thinks this is not Reeva. I could understand if it was I could see Reeva lying in the bed, or I thought Reeva was lying in the bed, or Reeva was in the bed when I got up, so I knew it wasn't her. I could understand that, but he doesn't say any of this right now. What he is intent on doing is telling us why he thinks it's a burglar, but he does not discount Reeva, and he's going into lots of detail about the specific thoughts that he had at that time. Not once is he gone into any thought at all around Reeva, either why he discounted her, why he thought it couldn't be Reeva at all. In the middle of all that, he says, although I did not have my prosthetic legs on, I have mobility on my stumps. Just look at what surrounds that. Although I did not have my prosthetic legs on, I have mobility in my stumps. Before that was this thought about sense of terror rushing over him, all the thoughts about burglar, bars, contractors and ladders. And after it was the fear thing again. I believed that someone had entered my house. I was too scared to switch a light on. This is out of time with the rest of the package. That although I did not have my prosthetic legs on, I have mobility on my stumps. Why does this not appear at the beginning of the storytelling, this part? I got out of bed, didn't have my legs on, but I can get about on my stumps, and went onto the balcony to get the things in. It's as if he realizes that something coming up in the story is not going to make sense because he's forgot to tell us that he doesn't have his legs on and that he has mobility on his stumps. I'm not saying right now this is proof of deception, but in deceptive stories, people are making up things on the fly. It's a very hard thing to do. And they get to a part of the story and they realize, oh, I'm going to have to jump backwards in time to tell them something that's going to make the rest of the story make sense. And that's very much what this feels like. It's so out of time. In the middle of telling us about all the deduction that he's done to make him think that someone has come into the bathroom and that he was scared, then he feels the need to tell us something that's not relevant to this, but maybe will be relevant later. Although I did not have my prosthetic legs on, I have mobility in my stumps. Also, I noticed we saw lots of jointness before about our bedroom especially, but him and Reeva doing lots of things. He believed that someone had entered my house. Now, I don't know the situation here in that it may well have been his house and Reeva had another house, or it was just his house and Reeva lived there. But very interesting, the discussion was about we had dinner together, we went to bed, we went to our bedroom, by the way, but now he's decided that it was my house. And he says, I was too scared to switch a light on. Factual. I was too scared to switch a light on. But as we know what's coming next in the statement, he was too scared to switch a light on. Doesn't say why, doesn't say what switching a light on would do. As the comment was at the beginning, switching a light would at least give him some clarity on the situation, maybe just really help him. But we know he goes on to say that he grabbed his gun, he yelled, get out, and he yelled to Reeva, call the police. So he was too scared to switch a light on and, I don't know, attract attention to himself, but not too scared to grab his gun, to yell, get out to the person, and to call 911. That seems very strange to me. The statement continues, I grabbed my 9mm pistol from underneath my bed. Now, I don't know anything about guns, but this is the second time he's told us it's a 9mm pistol. Is that a small pistol? Is that like a kind of, I don't know, unthreatening weapon or something? Is he wanting to show that I'm not a huge gun enthusiast? I didn't have a big power weapon. It was just a 9mm pistol. I don't know. Maybe let me know in the comments or on social media if you know more about guns than me. But he seems to be very keen to get across the fact it was a 9mm pistol. For the purposes of the story, the size of the gun does not matter. I grabbed my pistol or I grabbed my gun would have been enough. So why is he adding that extra in there with the 9mm pistol? He says, on my way to the bathroom, I screamed words to the effect for them to get out of my house and for Reeva to phone the police. So this is the guy who was too scared to put a light on, but is screaming words. He screamed, get out. He screamed, phone the police. And you'll notice this, on my way to the bathroom, I screamed words to the effect. Now, that's, again, this feels like it's being narrated. It feels like it's written in a book. On his way to the bathroom, Oscar screamed words to the effect of get out of my house. On my way to the bathroom, I screamed words to the effect for him, them to get out of my house. Again, I feel like this is narration. I feel like he is telling a story, a fictional story through his use of words, rather than telling me about events that he lived in. And then, again, well out of time, it was pitch dark in the bedroom and I thought Reeva was in bed. So he's very clear it was pitch dark. He's told us he was too scared to switch on the lights. And the story that he did not know Reeva was out of bed only makes sense if it was pitch dark in the bedroom. So he has to tell us that. And I thought Reeva was in bed. This again is out of time. This would have been good at the point when I said, yeah, why did you discount Reeva? Well, this is why he discounted Reeva, because it was pitch dark in the bedroom and I thought Reeva was in bed. This again is out of time. It has come later on in the story. It should have come naturally. I thought Reeva was in bed, so I knew the person in the bathroom must be an intruder. His storytelling is not linear. And one more time, you'll see that I told them to get out of my house. So again, he's taking ownership of the house. He says, I noticed that the bathroom window was open. I realized that the intruders were in the toilet because the toilet door was closed and I did not see anyone in the bathroom. Now here he is doing the pretense, right? So I understand if his story was true that he might have thought there is an intruder or intruders inside the toilet, yeah? But he's several times does this intruders were thing there. He is overdoing the pretense because at the time of writing, he knew there was no intruder. So actually saying, I realized that the intruders were in the toilet. I realized is a very definite word. And here we would be expecting, I thought the intruders were in the toilet. He's overdoing this. So again, I get a sense of fakeness around his fear and his fear of an intruder. It doesn't feel real. I realized the intruders were in the toilet. No, I thought that at that time, I thought the intruders were in the toilet. And he thought they were there because the toilet door was closed and I did not see anyone in the bathroom. I heard movement inside the toilet. The toilet is inside the bathroom and has a separate door. Once again, I have all this feel of narration going on. And once more, it's out of time. This part about the toilet is inside the bathroom and has a separate door. I noticed the bathroom window was open. There was no one in the bathroom, but the toilet is off the bathroom, has a separate door, and I heard movement from inside there. The storytelling is just not linear. I caught something else here. He said, because the toilet door was closed, I did not see anyone in the bathroom. Then he said earlier that he shouted and screamed to the effect, get out of my house. Did he not think maybe they left out this open bathroom window rather than, someone being in the toilet? He seemed to be pretty damn convinced there was someone in the toilet. He said, it filled me with horror and fear of an intruder or intruders being inside the toilet. It filled me with horror and fear. Once again, we have this narrative distance from the horror and fear. I was full of horror and fear. I thought there was an intruder being inside the toilet, but he's talking in these narrative terms. It filled me with horror and fear. It's just a little bit too flowery. It's just a little bit too much like something that has been written as fiction. He says, as I did not have my prosthetic legs on and felt extremely vulnerable, I knew I had to protect Reeva and myself. And there's the sympathy vote that he's going for here by mentioning his prosthetic legs, and the fact he didn't have them on made him feel extremely vulnerable. Not just vulnerable, by the way, extremely vulnerable. He also says, I have limited mobility on my stumps. So is he pointing out here that, give me some sympathy here. I live a different life from you. I do things that you don't. I feel things that you don't. He said, I believed that when the intruder/intruders came out of the toilet, we would be in grave danger. When they came out of the toilet, not if they came out of the toilet. That's an interesting choice of words. Once again, we've got something out of time. My bedroom door was locked. Now, when he's talking earlier about this, then why did he not tell us that one of his fears was the bedroom door was locked? And look, I don't know the mechanism for locking the bedroom door, but would it really take that long to unlock a bedroom door and get out? I felt trapped as my bedroom door was locked. I'm sure it could have been unlocked. You also said you went on the balcony earlier. So, were you really feeling that trapped? But it's out of time again that he's telling us these things as he is feeling the need to add these things in to make sense of the story. So when he says, I felt trapped, I need to make that make sense. So I'm going to now say my bedroom door was locked. He didn't tell us any of that earlier. Once more, he is out of time. Some interesting words in this passage where I think he is wanting to show us how vulnerable he felt. He uses the words unprotected, vulnerable, and trapped. Now, these are also things that Reeva would have felt that night. She would have felt unprotected, she would have felt vulnerable, and she would have felt trapped in the bathroom. Oscar says, I fired shots at the toilet door and shouted to Reeva to phone the police. Now, I fired shots at the toilet door. Very direct, very honest, and all the ownership there. I fired shots at the toilet door. Now, he doesn't try and hide it or create any distance between firing these shots at the toilet door. And that is very truthful and a lot of ownership there. He could have said the gun went off at towards the toilet door, or, I fired at the toilet door, but it's I fired shots at the toilet door. That's where some of my credit for him finishes, though, because right after he fired shots at the toilet door, he shouted to Reeva to phone the police. So his first thought after shooting at the toilet door is Reeva in his telling here, and he's linking the shots to Reeva. What is going on there? Is it that he knows these shots hit Reeva? Or is it that the first thing he wants us to hear when he says that he fired these shots at the toilet door was, I thought Reeva was alive and I shouted to Reeva? Is that what's going on there? And then he uses this phrase, really interesting, and he uses it quite a lot. She did not respond. I shouted to Reeva to phone the police. She did not respond. It's not she didn't answer, she didn't wake up, she didn't call the police, she did nothing. It's she did not respond. Is this what happened? Did he fire shots at the toilet door and was it intended to scare her or something? But she did not respond. An interesting section here. I moved backwards out of the bathroom, keeping my eyes on the bathroom entrance. How is that possible? To move backwards out of the bathroom, you have to be inside the bathroom, and you're moving backwards, so your eyes are not towards the entrance as you're moving backwards out of the bathroom. I moved backwards out of the bathroom, keeping my eyes on the bathroom entrance. I'm not sure you can do both of those things at the same time. Again, I know what he wants to say, but he just doesn't have the realistic, authentic language to say it. Once again, he's letting us know that it was pitch dark. It's very important for him to let us know it was very dark. Everything was pitch dark in the bedroom, and I was still too scared to switch on a light. Why? Why were you so scared to switch on a light? You have shouted, get out my house. You've shouted twice, phone the police in your telling of this. You have fired shots at the toilet door, and you are still too scared to switch on a light. Reeva was not responding. Now, he doesn't say what Reeva was not responding to here. Just Reeva was not responding. I think this is real language. I think this is his experience, that Reeva was not responding. When I reached the bed, I realized that Reeva was not in bed. That is when it dawned on me that it could have been Reeva who was in the toilet. But wait a minute, you called out to that person. You called out to that person to leave the house. If it was Reeva, surely she would have went, it's me that's in the toilet. Shut up, Oscar. I'm in the toilet. Leave me alone. So why did it dawn on you there? It could have been Reeva who was in the toilet. That, again, doesn't make sense. He went out onto the balcony and he screamed for help. It's the second mention of screaming there. That gives, we were talking about, is there any sense of anger that comes through in the words? This screaming suggests, was there some screaming matches going on? He does feel like he's writing a script here, because he talks about actions and places and movement. I fired shots at the door and shouted. I moved backwards out of the bathroom. I returned to the bathroom calling her name. I tried to open the toilet door, but it was locked. I rushed back into the bedroom and opened the sliding door, exiting onto the balcony, and screamed for help. It really is detailed, especially the detail about the movement. You know, I moved backwards, I returned, I rushed back into the bedroom, I opened the sliding doors, exiting onto the balcony. It's like script instructions there. However, there's just always something missing. So the last part there, I rushed back into the bedroom and opened the sliding door, exiting onto the balcony, and screamed for help. The next thing he says is, I put on my prosthetic legs. When did you do that? Or were they on the balcony? Or did you come back into the bedroom? He doesn't tell us. He talks about lots of movement as if he's trying to capture every single movement he made, so he can say, look how honest this story is. I can remember every single movement I made. But once again, it just doesn't flow. He doesn't say, I came back into the bedroom and put on my prosthetic legs. I ran back to the bathroom. Now, he has said he was in the bathroom before. Did he run back to the bathroom? Did he run back? Did he run away from it the first time? I don't know. Is that why he's saying he ran back to it? The whole putting on the prosthetic legs thing and him telling us several times that he did not have his legs on, so his mobility was limited. I'm not entirely sure. I believe that. Did he have his legs on all the time? Therefore, he had much more mobility and the ability to maybe chase Reeva around the bedroom or something like that. I don't know. But he's very keen on telling us that he didn't have his legs on, and then suddenly he just puts them on. They kind of appear out of nowhere. He ran back to the bathroom and this says, I think I must then have turned on the lights. Finally, the lights are on. Now, bear in mind, it was pitch black and he realised that Reeva was not in bed, by the way, you know, so that was a bit strange. But because before, when it was pitch black, he had no way of knowing that Reeva wasn't in bed. But I think I must have turned on the lights. But it's only I think. He's very clear about a lot. He's very clear about a lot of movement. But then here it's, I think I must then have turned on the lights. He says, I went back into the bedroom and grabbed my cricket bat to bash open the toilet door. A panel or panels broke off and I found the key on the floor and unlocked and opened the door. Now, this is an interesting passage, and I'm wondering if some of this is out of time. Was Reeva inside the bathroom, and did he try and break the door down with a cricket bat to get to her? So he has to explain this away. We've got the word bash, open the toilet door. You know, it's not force or even just to get into the toilet, to get to Reeva, who I thought was inside the toilet. It's to bash open the toilet door. That's what really made me think of this. Grabbed my cricket bat. Again, quite an angry action to bash open the toilet door. Did this happen slightly earlier, that he grabbed his cricket bat and tried to bash open the toilet door? It's just, this is all about angrily trying to sludge his way through the toilet door rather than trying to get to find out what was inside. You will notice, by the way, the panic has gone, and he doesn't say where the panic has gone. He was too scared to turn on the lights a minute ago, and now he is turning on the lights, bashing the door, and willing to go straight through that toilet door despite not knowing what's on the other side. He only thinks it's Reeva at this point. He only thinks it's Reeva, and he says Reeva was slumped over but alive. The next section, I battled to get her out of the toilet. Again, we've got one of these kind of angry words. I battled to get her out of the toilet. Was there a battle when she was in the toilet and he was battling to get her out of the toilet? Again, one of those angry words showing through. I pulled her into the bathroom. He says, I phoned Jonathan Stander, in brackets Stander, who was involved in the administration of the estate, and asked him to phone the ambulance. I phoned Netcare and asked for help. Now, I don't know why he couldn't phone the ambulance himself. I don't know if there's a reason for that, if there's something in the setup that meant that had to happen. But it's interesting that he didn't phone the ambulance himself. And he says, I went downstairs to open the front door. I returned to the bathroom and picked Reeva up as I had been told not to wait for the paramedics but to take her to hospital. I carried her downstairs in order to take her to hospital. On my way down, Stander arrived. The doctor who lived in the complex also arrived. Downstairs, I tried to render the assistance to Reeva that I could, but she died in my arms. Now, I felt this section was a bit different. I don't know, didn't know at first what it was. We still have lots of talk about the action. I do wonder if really the reason that he carried Reeva downstairs was because he'd been told not to wait for the paramedics, but to take her to hospital because of this explained sentence here. I carried her downstairs in order to take her to hospital. Certainly doesn't seem to be any rush to here at all to do any of this. But then I realised that one of the things that has changed here is others have got involved in the story. So if you're lying about events, if you're on your own or the only other person that was there is now dead, you can pretty much say anything you want about what happened and it'll be very hard to prove you wrong, as long as, you know, the cricket bat has moved and the door is, smashed in and there is a fan in the balcony and so on. But you can say pretty much what you want. You can say we had a lovely night and we were very much in love when you hated each other and were screaming at each other and battling with each other all night long. But if you're lying and other people are involved, you have to tell the truth as they saw it, because otherwise they're going to say this person's lying about that. And this is what I think has happened here. This is where Stander comes into it. He phoned neck care, a doctor arrives. So at this point there are witnesses, and I think this is why there is this slight change in the narrative that goes on, because all of a sudden his story definitely has to match up with the story that all these other people are telling. Oscar says, I am absolutely mortified by the events and the devastating loss of my beloved Reeva. Fans of Never a Truer Word will know the word absolutely appears there, which always is a flag to look for deception. The one that really got me in that section actually was mortified. I am absolutely mortified by the events. Bit of distancing there, not by what I have done, but just the events. So that is distancing from it. And mortified is a word that really is about embarrassment, isn't it? I went to work with my shirt on inside out. I was mortified. I wore odd socks to the gym. I was mortified. My kid was sick in the middle of the store. I was mortified. Mortified, is that the word that would describe shooting your loved one? He does say here, the events of that tragic night were as I have described them. And I thought that just summed up everything I feel I've read. He has been describing events, not relating events, not reliving events, but describing events. And bit of ingratiation here, the expert investigators will bear this out. Not just the police and the investigators will bear this out, but it's the experts. If you bear this out, then you are an expert, seems to be what is being said there. But I will give him credit here because he talks about the suffering I have caused. He takes ownership there. He could have said, I cannot bear to think of the suffering her family are going through, knowing how much she was loved. But he has taken ownership there and said it's the suffering that I have caused. And that's Oscar's statement. What do you think to that? Well, what do I think? Look, for me, it was all told in the past tense. That's what we would expect. There certainly was some signs of unity in his telling of the story beforehand, and he takes ownership. He takes ownership of firing the gun, and he takes ownership of the suffering that has been caused. However, it's not linear. Things pop up in really odd times, and it's out of time, and all of a sudden when something needs explained, he will drop something in that we should have heard earlier on if he was telling events in a linear fashion. Definite signs of narration. At times it's like someone reading a work of fiction rather than someone telling us about a very traumatic event that they discovered, which in his telling is a very traumatic event. He woke up and thought there was an intruder in the house, and then even worse, he'd shot and killed his partner. Instead, we've just got signs of narration. He doesn't explain so many of his key points. He doesn't explain why he discounted Reeva until a long, long way into the telling of this. And he doesn't explain why he was too frightened to turn on the lights and so on. And his expression of fear that there is violent crime, that where people want to cause violent crime, was constructed. In fact, he didn't even say he feared it. He just said he was aware of the crime, which is why he had a gun. Definite hints of anger in the language, battling, grabbed, screaming, and real hints of discomfort that night. His setup was a little bit clunky, and he couldn't bring, I don't think, authentic language of them having a great night in unity. So do I buy his story that he thought it was an intruder? My answer to that is no, I don't. It would take a lot more words to convince me of that. I think that the intruder narrative is constructed in Oscar Pistorius' head. What do you think? You can leave your comments on this platform if you can, or get in touch on social media. All the notes, all the social media links are in the show notes below. You can share this with people too, either maybe people who are interested in the Oscar Pistorius story, or people who just want to understand a little bit more about what is being said in statements around them. The like button as well will be my friend. This helps us get to many more people. And to get more episodes like this, hit the subscribe or follow buttons. Become a member of the channel on YouTube, or a subscriber on Spotify to get episodes before anyone else and exclusive content too. Neveratruerword.com is the website address there. You can find more videos, more podcasts. You can sign up for the monthly newsletter. Get in touch on social media. There's so much there for you. Neveratruerword.com is the website address, and we'll see you for something new soon from Never a Truer Word.